Love Bay family. I'm Felicia Fishoff, host of the Mental Health Hour and founder of Rooted in Resilience, Psychotherapy and Wellness. And tonight we're coming together for a very special broadcast. This is Weathering the Storm, a grief, hope, and healing space for Jamaica and the Jamaican diaspora. As many of you know, Hurricane Melissa has caused devastation across Jamaica, damaging communities and leaving watching from afar, praying, and feeling helpless. For many Jamaicans living abroad, this past week has been heavy. We've been carrying the weight of worry into our homes, workplaces, and hearts, trying to focus while wondering how our loved ones are doing back home. And tonight, we just wanted to slow down, to breathe, and to hold space for the grief, anxiety, and uncertainty that so many of us are feeling. I'm honored to be joined by three incredible women whose work and presence embody healing, leadership, and faith. Natasha Pennycook, a passionate psychotherapist and speaker with roots in both Canada and the Caribbean, known for her culturally attuned and trauma informed approach. She brings over a decade of experience supporting individuals through anxiety, trauma, and grief. And she has a heart for helping people reconnect to themselves through awareness, compassion, and growth. Roxanne Francis, an award winning psychotherapist, consultant, leadership coach, and international speaker who has spent more than 15 years helping people and organizations build stronger, healthier communities. She is the founder and CEO of Francis Psychotherapy and Consulting Services and the visionary behind the Therapist Lounge, empowering mental health professionals to thrive in business and wellness. Her work around racial trauma, burnout, and mental health in the Black community continues to inspire change across Canada. And last but not least, Simone Donaldson, the CEO and founder of Agape Lens Consulting and Therapy, a recipient of both the local Distinguished Social Worker Award in 2025 and Canada's Top 100 Black Women to Watch in 2024. Simone is a psychotherapist, leadership coach, and equity consultant who has spent over 15 years bridging the gap between wellness and justice. She's passionate about guiding individuals and organizations toward authenticity, healing, and sustainable change. Together, we'll talk about what it means to process loss communally, how we grieve as a people, care for our emotional and spiritual well being, and support one another even when distance separates us. And for those who are able to tune in from back home, we want you to know how much our hearts and prayers are with you. Even across the distance, we feel your pain, your courage, and your strength. You are not forgotten and you are not alone. And as always, a gentle reminder that this show is a space for education, reflection, and community care. While we'll be talking about real emotions and experiences, this is not therapy and doesn't replace professional mental health care. If someone or something we share tonight touches a tender place, please reach out to a trusted therapist, counselor, pastor, or community support in your area. You're not alone in this. So the chat is open, and we invite you to share your reflections, prayers, or words of comfort. Let's remind our brothers and sisters at home and abroad that we are with them, even when the winds shake us. Our roots in love, faith, and community keep us grounded. All right, so let's begin the evening of healing and hope. Natasha, Simone, I know Roxanne will join us later. So welcome to the Mental Health Hour. Oh,
Hey.
Roxanne, you're here. So welcome.
I made
Holla.
it.
Yay. Oh my goodness. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for just even being willing to jump on. I know it was kind of like a last minute thing. Fun fact: we were at Roxanne's event on Saturday, and shameless plug for the Therapist Lounge. Boop boop boop. Don't miss it next year if you missed it this year. And Natasha and I, we were just talking as you were in line waiting for our cake. And we just started to talk about just this grief that
Yeah.
we've been carrying, that we know that a lot of our family members has been carrying. And so I just wanted to start off by asking, why do we need to be having this conversation tonight?
Yeah, I'll jump in because
Yeah.
just how our conversation started, Felicia, and hello
Yeah.
everyone. I love being in this.
Hey!
Can I just say this is like powerhouse right here conversation. I love
Yes,
it.
yes.
Yes.
But Saturday at the therapist lounge was such a
Yeah.
great space to be able to just connect. And
Yeah.
Felicia, when you and I were in line and just started chatting, and we're checking in on each other and each other's families, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to hold space for one another after
Yeah.
we hold space for so many people, right? Being able to just
Absolutely.
say, like, and I think I said to you, I feel like this deep ancestral wound where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, places where my ancestors have been from, they're no more. Like
Yeah.
the houses are gone. There's even graves that are gone and have washed away. So it's just this like deep sense of hurt and pain. And with that, there comes this like guilt. There's like the survivor's guilt, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm okay. I'm here. I have
Mm-hmm.
my house. I got my bed. I got my food, family. But there are people who are connected to me who don't. So
Mm-hmm.
there's this deep place, right? And I think that's where
Mm-hmm.
we really connect. And then, Felicia, we're like, okay, let's talk about it more. Let's do something. And
Yeah.
this came up overnight, literally.
Yes. Thank you, Love Bay team, for allowing us to
Yes.
do this tonight.
Yeah. I'm really grateful. At first when you asked, I'll be honest, I was like, I don't know, because I have been feeling the grief, right? I
Yeah.
think this is a collective grief, and sometimes and to be honest, November in general is such a tough time for me. And so I was like, boy, I cannot handle one more thing. But the truth is, what has always helped is getting together in community and talking about the tough things and allowing yourself to sit in it, just that, like we tell our clients or those that we
Yeah.
and so I was really happy and privileged to absolutely be a part of this conversation. I was like, no, there's no way I can't say
Yeah.
no. I gotta be here to ensure that people know that we see them, that we're feeling the grief, although it may not be the same. But truly, our prayers are with them. And in so many ways, we're trying to find ways on the ground to support. And I think that was also kind of my
Mhm.
challenge, right? Was like, what,
Yeah.
like these houses are like,
They're
people are
gone.
displaced. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
we don't even hear. We're still not hearing from people, and like what? So you feel helpless, even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I do think having these conversations is a beautiful way forward. So I'm so
Mm-hmm.
grateful to be
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
here.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Simone and Natasha have said. And, you know, when we hear about tragedy that happens in other places,
Yeah.
there is this sense, I mean, not to say that we're not connected and that we don't mourn with other communities and other people, but there's this sense that this kind of thing happens elsewhere.
Mm,
This kind of thing happens to other people, right? This kind of thing happens very far away,
Yeah.
right? And our our ancestral home, the Caribbean, is not necessarily war torn. It's not a
Mhm.
place of, it's not usually a place of great displacement.
Mhm.
It has its challenges for sure, but it's a place of connection and joy, and to see our people. I mean, this is, I was raised in that country, right? And to see our people not just lose the homes that they live in, or to only emerge with the shirts on their backs, but to appear very, very stunned. There is just this sense of, in some of the images and videos that I've seen,
Yeah.
there's a sense of people just being completely stunned. And it's trauma, right?
It is. It is.
This idea of, we don't even know what's next. We don't
Yeah.
even know where to start, right? It really, it has really broken my heart. And, I will admit, someone said to me the other day, we need you and your colleagues down there. And the thought that came to my mind was, I feel even overwhelmed just thinking about how would I even support to see people so um deep in fresh trauma? It's quite something, and so my heart is definitely grieving. And you know, there is this I have friends and family who are fine, they just got a little bit of wind and rain. And I know people who have lost housing and lost roofs and lost furniture to flood, and they have children, and it's hard. It's
Mhm.
hard.
Absolutely. You know, I'm so glad that you brought up the images that we're seeing, because that in itself is just, it leaves you with this feeling. At least for me, it's like this feeling of disbelief and numbness. There's one video of Sav, and I was like, I've been there, and to see
Mm-hmm.
how like devastating, I was like, oh my gosh. And it's just like this feeling of just unease. It's hard to explain. It's like unease, it's like grief,
Mm-hmm.
it's like numbness.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think our communities are experiencing as these images are pouring in and they haven't even heard from their families yet?
I mean, I think we have to be mindful of what we're digesting, but of course, these are ways that we're trying to stay connected and um in the know of kind of what's happening. But these images are quite re-traumatizing. And, I do think one of the things that has supported myself and other clients that I've spoken to is just creating a bit of limitation around that, so that
Mhm.
there is a way for our nervous system to rest and for us to
Yes.
feel a little bit more balanced. Because the reality is, when we are just knee deep and seeing these images, and yes, we have the privilege to look at them and not look at them, but for us to even be our best self in support of those who are in Jamaica and or here, we too need to be well. And
Mm-hmm.
so in terms of the images, I would just say, just be mindful of how much you're taking in, because we know social media has a way of also sensationalizing things. And there's not as many censors anymore as there used to be. And I think the truth is, we're not supposed to be exposed to things as much as we are now. And it really does a number on us. And I do think that, again, for us to help as best as we can, for as long as we need to, because this is a long haul, right?
Yeah.
We too need to ensure that we're well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I would just caution people about.
Yeah.
Um, Stay connected still, but maybe find other ways,
Mm-hmm.
and be mindful of that. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. And I think that, as Simone, you said, everything is sensationalized right now, right? It's so much, and there's, music tracks to B-roll and just all of this stuff. It's nonstop on every channel over social media. It's there. While I understand the reasons as well, right? There are people who have not heard from their loved ones. So they're counting on those images to be like, okay, this is my area. I'm not seeing this house. I'm not seeing the blue house that was down the street.
Mhm.
But it's a lot. And it is re traumatizing. I myself have been, like, last week binge watching a whole bunch of stuff. And then I didn't recognize how angry I was, right? I didn't realize
Mm-hmm.
how angry I was getting. And I had to stop and be like, why am I so angry? And part of the
Mm.
anger, as we know, with the grief, it's like, I'm angry because I can't do anything. Like, I
Yes.
physically cannot be there, right? So it's like, I was getting angry. My husband was like, why are you angry? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
angry. I'm
Yeah.
feeling so angry. But it is the grief. As we know, like, underneath the anger, there's the sadness, there's the hopelessness, there's the grief. And I know
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people who are feeling that and who are just as confused and perplexed on what do we do, right?
Mhm.
So, just like to reiterate what Simone was saying, it's watching what you can, but when you start feeling like these feelings that are usually not there bubbling up, that's the signal to take a pause, because it is
Mm-hmm.
too much in our nervous system. The constant firing, we're not supposed to be in that. The constant over and over and over. And how do we maintain? ourselves and our days and our own livelihood so that we can be there and present for our family and friends who need us in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, years ago, we used to, when I was, at least when I was a little girl, years ago, um, when devastating things were happening across the world, we would have to wait for the 7 o'clock news to see anything, or the 11 o'clock news to hear anything. But
Mhm.
it's immediate. Like I remember just a few days ago sitting at my kitchen table, and there were Instagram lives coming up from people who were actually, but like before the hurricane like started to devastate the island or parts of the island, they were doing Instagram lives talking about, okay, so we hear that this parish is okay, this parish is not doing so great, like right live in the middle of it, right? And so the information, the images, the sound, it's instant. And exactly to what Simone and Natasha are saying, it's not, we're not meant to have access to all of that information all at once. And so it's sensory overload, right? And it really does impact our wellness. And so to Simone's point, we have to um, pay attention to how much of that we're consuming.
And I'm also thinking of, I do have even like a partner that I work with, and she's from Jamaica and remembers being really small when Hurricane Gilbert
Oh,
was
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So not only are folks feeling the impact of Hurricane Melissa, but also the past hurricane, and kind of reliving that. And so this is again another reason why we're saying the importance of just being mindful of what you're taking in and how you're taking it in. Because even from that time, let's be real, a lot of us, not until maybe the last decade, begun to realize that we even need support around our mental health, around trauma,
That's right.
around these things
Yes.
we're often carrying around. And as beautiful as Jamaica is, one of my students was saying today, she's like, make sure you tell them that we're small but we taliwa. I said, yes.
Yes.
And I said, yes, I'll make sure they know, because it's true, we are. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's such a beauty in the resilience that we experience as Jamaicans, and that we know
Mm.
how to. I really believe it's like we know how to move into radical acceptance really good, right? We saw
Mm-hmm.
dancing, making music, all these things, and it's beautiful, it's great. And we also require deeper support and healing at times, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that, again, this is not to say, don't look at anything at all, don't, consider people out there. No, we want folks to continue to allow community to be that healing space. This collective grief is real, and so is the collective healing. And
Mm-hmm.
just got to be mindful of how we're doing, so that resilience that we do have can continue the work to rebuild, right? And not just rebuild the houses, but rebuild our mind, our soul, our spirit,
Mm-hmm.
all things,
Mm-hmm.
because the truth is, with grief and with trauma, so much of that is lost oftentimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just something I wanted to kind of also bring to the surface, is that this thing
Mm.
is a reminder of what folks have experienced in the past. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
if people are feeling extra tired, or the irritability, the anger, like Natasha spoke of, that might
Mhm.
be what you're experiencing.
Mhm.
And please, like, reach out to, a mental health practitioner if you feel you need to, and or your spiritual leader if they are coping well, because they
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
do. But
Mhm.
um don't do this alone. So that's the other thing I would say is, get in community, get into the spaces that make you feel grounded, that
Yeah.
make you feel loved and cared for. Don't hold it by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, Simone, you brought up Hurricane Gilbert, and I came to this country right on the cusp of adulthood, and I lived through that hurricane as a child. And what I remember being concerned hearing that the hurricane was coming, because I had never lived through one before at that age. Um, and I remember, all the wind and the rain and all of that. And in the aftermath, watching my neighbors care for each other. It's that's one of the things that I remembered. I remembered um, trying to, watching the adults try to clean up the neighborhood. I remember, people going out to try to get supplies to make sure that everyone had enough, right? I remember sharing ice, right? Because there was no electricity, no one had any refrigerators, right? I remember, adults going out to get ice and making sure that that neighbor had ice and this neighbor had ice. I remember, adults setting up coal stoves outside so they could cook outside to make sure that everyone had food, right? At nighttime, there was people would congregate in a particular area of the street, and they would make these bottle lamps, right? They would put oil in the lamps and then put cloth at the top of it and then light the top, and that would be,
Sure.
because no one had any flashlights, right? Or the batteries were done or whatever, right? And so and we would congregate, and everyone had their little homemade lamp. And we would talk way into the night, and there would be lots of laughter, and so even in the midst of the challenges, right, there was community, there was support, there was laughter. Every so often someone would break down and the women would hug them and say, no, worry yourself, everything's doing all right. And there was just this sense of camaraderie. Now, that being said, that situation is a little bit different from this situation. The challenges are more difficult this time around. At least when all the fun and laughter was over, I could go in my home with my mother and lay in a dry bed. And I'm not sure if that's the case for many people now, right? And so even, the challenges might be greater, but the sense of community is still strong. And I think even though there's trauma and even though there's displacement, the sense of community is still strong. And I think that sense of resiliency, when someone goes through a really difficult situation, the difference between complex trauma and resiliency is a connection and support.
Yep.
Right? And so if people in Jamaica still can, if they can provide support for each other and offer connection to each other, then there's hope, right? There's hope.
We have a question in the chat. Is it grief or is it guilt?
I think it's both. Right? It's absolutely both. And, Roxanne, you made this point, this community resiliency, right? There's this sense of community resiliency. So when we go back in the grief or the guilt, it's both, because we are grieving. All of us were here grieving, right? Everyone listening, there's grief, but there's also that guilt. There's the guilt that we can grieve. Right? There's the guilt that we can be here, that we can be having these conversations, that those in the diaspora, whether in Canada, the States, or elsewhere, just being able to look and to see what's happening and not being in it. Right? So when we think about that, there's absolutely the guilt and the grief. But I do want to go back and talk about that community resiliency. There's so much importance in that, being able to be resilient, but within community, knowing that today maybe I can hold it, but maybe tomorrow someone else will hold it for me. That's so
I like
important,
that.
right? It's so important to be able to say that, yeah, I can grieve. Today I'm grieving, but maybe tomorrow I'm going to feel guilty. And then someone else can hold it. Right? And that's so important. That's why, even with this space and other spaces, being in community spaces really helps to activate that healing, because we can't hold it all the time. It's too much and it's too heavy and it's hard. So being able to say that, okay, I'm going to hold it now, but I'm going to put it down after. And I know someone else will be there to hold it. It's just so important to be able to do that. And I don't think we give ourselves the space and or permission to do that enough. So
Mhm.
when we're seeing, different things where communities are coming together and making sure the neighbors have food, checking in on someone, that is that community resiliency that we build together.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Mm. Wow. So powerful,
And
lady.
grief is,
Go ahead.
sorry, I think
Oh,
my
no, please go ahead.
computer is lagging. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can
go
hear
ahead.
Yeah,
you.
you're good. You're good, Simone.
Okay, sorry. What I was gonna say, just to add on, is that grief is a complex emotion,
Mm.
and often it's riddled with different emotions, right? So when we talk about, is it grief or guilt, and as Natasha mentioned, yeah, likely it is both, and so many other things, right? And when we're experiencing this grief, I think people often just think about the sadness of it all, or
Mm.
that people are supposed to feel sad. But no, I believe it was Natasha that mentioned earlier that she was feeling even anger underneath her grief, right? I know for me, I was feeling some anxiousness under the grief. And I think there might be a lot of guilt that people are feeling under the grief. And very common, very common way that grief shows up. And I think it's it's okay to sit in whatever that feeling is, and try to understand it. But as I think has been said over and over again, the collective is absolutely, probably one of our strongest tools in this
Mhm.
moment, whether
Mhm.
it is family, friends, spiritual, your church, wherever it is. Allowing yourself to kind of be in whatever emotion shows up that, and likely it is part of
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Mhm. As we sit here in North America, in Canada, and feel this sense of, um, I don't know, survivor's guilt, if you will, or this feeling of we're okay, and we have the opportunity or the privilege of looking away. That also exists on the island of Jamaica, right? Because there are parts of the island that are more more urban areas, and parts that are more rural. There, the hurricane passed through on the western side. The western side got more damage, far more damage than the eastern side. And just even last night, my husband was talking to a close trusted friend that he went to school with, and he is um, so fine, to the point where he and his family at one point weren't even aware that the community had lost power, because they have access to solar panels, right? And so while people across the nation have no shoes, only the shirt on their backs, no homes, they're like, pass me the butter, right? They're just living, right? And so he was even saying that he was having this sense of, um, I can't believe that we're existing in this way and they're existing in that way. And so he's decided that he's going to take his family, and him and his boys, they're going to drive as far into the countryside as they can to offer some help, right? And so sometimes when we are caught in the depths of a sense of despair, or even some people having some hopelessness or helplessness, then what we can do to activate ourselves, or activate our more helpful positive emotions, is to get involved, right? In
Mhm.
whatever little way that you can. Mobilize some support, find out how you can offer help, because that kind of activation can help pull us up out of this sense of hopelessness, despair, this feeling of helplessness. Because many of us feel helpless. We are over here and they're over there. It feels like we can't do anything. But there are many little things that we can do to offer some kind of support.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so powerful. I love that you guys are talking about becoming more aware of how we notice our emotions right now. And, for the Love Bay listeners that are listening and tuning in tonight, how do they begin this process of paying attention? So, paying attention to that survivor's guilt or that anger or that grief or the grieving process, where do they start?
Yeah, it's hard to pay attention to self, right? A lot of times we're not taught to look inwards. A lot of times, especially as Black individuals, racialized folks, we're always taught to look out what other people are doing. But this is really an opportunity to look inward, to say, okay, what is going on with me? What am I feeling in this moment? Where is that living in my body? And being able to be a bit more attuned to that and speak it out loud. Some people may not have the words, the vocabulary, the emotional vocabulary, but even if it's like, my belly hurts or my chest is tight or my shoulders are burning or, my neck hurts, those kind of things, that's a good way to start recognizing the impact of this on the body, because the body is absolutely being impacted as well as the mind. We know that, the body and the mind, our physical health and our mental health, they're connected and interconnected, kind of like the two sides of the same coin. And starting to recognize that, okay, if I'm not attuned to one, let me be attuned to the other, which will then take care of that other, which will then roll over and take care of the one that I'm not as attuned to. So those are important. I think that, taking those pauses, right? Taking those pauses, being able to take a deep breath, being able to help others as well to understand, to have those conversations in community, to be able to help one another as they're going through this process, and sharing, right? We talk about being able to be in community, but sharing, normalizing that, yeah, I'm not okay right now. And that is allowed. A lot of times we're not allowed to say, I'm not okay. So being able even to say, I'm not okay, even if starting there, if that's all you have right now, start there and then go on.
Absolutely.
As people from colonized nations, to your point, Natasha, we have not been taught to look inwards because we have a history of being considered useful for labor, right? So what we do is work. What we do is we plow through. We don't have the luxury of checking in on ourselves, of checking, because no one has time for that, right? How many
Not
times have
allowed
you
the
heard that
time.
as a diaspora, right? We don't, exactly. We're not allowed the time. That's for other people, right? Feelings, all these nice these feelings, this idea of checking in, that's for other people. But if we and because we're so busy working and being useful for different reasons, we don't we don't really slow down, because it takes us slowing down, right? If you don't slow down, you can't check in. You won't know that you're not feeling so great unless you actually pause, right? And so sometimes we do need to slow down. I like to tell my clients, like, really have a hand to heart moment. Put your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. What am I feeling? How am I feeling? Right? You might notice that you're not feeling happy, right? But you might not know what the emotion is. You know that you feel uncomfortable. This thing bothers you, right? You can even just start there, right? Take a moment. I feel uncomfortable, and ask yourself why. When did I start to feel uncomfortable? Right? What makes this discomfort go away? And you can even journal if that's something that's accessible to you. Um, when did I start to feel like this? Well, I feel like this every time I turn on the news, or I feel like this every time I scroll online, right? And is this impacting other people? My feelings, like this how I'm feeling right now, this discomfort, this frustration, this ick that I'm carrying, is it rolling over into my family, my loved ones, my best friends, my children, right? And ask yourself, you know, the last time I felt like this, what were some of the things that helped me feel better? And I love, that Simone's pointing to community, because the more we talk with each other
Yeah.
about how we are feeling, the less likely we are to shame ourselves for feeling this way. Because
Mm-hmm.
many times we have negative feelings and we tell ourselves that we shouldn't feel this way. You
Yeah.
know, get over it. We shouldn't feel this way. You should be strong. I must be weak if I feel like this, right? And the more we talk with each other and the more you realize that you're not the only one feeling this way, the more you give yourself permission to actually feel.
Mm-hmm.
And the less shame we feel about feeling this way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have to slow down, we have to check in with ourselves, and we have to check in with community.
Mm-hmm. Many of our cultures, like, especially in the Jamaican culture, we heal through storytelling.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
And so how can we utilize that gift, that tool of storytelling right now?
Mhm.
I think we can start with, you know, stories of resilience,
Mm,
right? We can start with that time when we went through a thing and we made it through,
yes.
right? We can also, I remember stories of joy, right? Stories of laughter, funny things that happened, things that caused people to hold their head back and hold on to their belly and laugh till tears come out, right? That's really, really healing.
Mhm.
Um, Stories of our parents and grandparents, right? Stories that have come to us through our lineage, right?
Mhm.
Saying the things on our lips so that the children hear it, so that they're reminded of who they're from. They're reminded of who their people are and what their people are like, right? It's definitely a time for storytelling for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And storytelling helps with the representation, right? If a
Yes.
lot of times that
Yes.
we are not in those positions to say that this is how I feel, then we could tell it through story,
Mm,
right? And I think that is so vital and so
yeah.
important. And, Roxanne, as you were saying about like passing it down the lineage, what that does, that starts to build that, that family resiliency that our ancestors
Mhm.
went through this. And
Mhm.
even though it feels like you may not be able to, our ancestors went through this, therefore you can too, because they made you. You come from it,
Yes.
right? So it's trying
Yes.
to put in those stories of how important it is to build that resiliency, but also knowing that our ancestors got us, right?
Mhm.
That they're right there holding us up and they've been through it. So therefore we know that we can pass through it. And absolutely letting the younger generations know where they're coming from, knowing the stories. And so they have not only something to pass on, but something to hold on to when things are really hard and challenging, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Having that piece to hold on to, I think it's underrated. Like being able to have that piece that, like, you know what? I may not feel that I can do this, but I know that I can because the story told me that I can. And that story is about my great great grandfather who did this, or my great great grandmother who did this. Therefore, I can too. Right? It's so
Mhm.
important and so vital, the
Mhm.
storytelling
Absolutely.
piece.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if we
I'm
can
not.
play, if
I'm
we
not
can
sure.
do that.
I'm hoping
Oh no,
folks
no,
can
go
hear
ahead.
me.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're good,
Yeah,
Stephen.
sorry, because it's not great. I'm so sorry.
It's
But I'm
okay.
thinking of storytelling and the ways we used to do it through dance and through these nursery
Mm.
rhymes and through these
Mm-hmm.
different games that we would play, right? I feel like historically, like dance and song has been another way that we tell stories. And again, if we're thinking about how we might experience joy and also resilience and the ways in which our people have like healed for generations on generations, song and dance has been such a powerful tool in getting us
Mhm.
through the toughest times and allowing us to understand our experience, emote it even,
Yeah.
right? And we know with a lot of research now around the ways in which music and
Yeah.
body-based work and how effective it is in releasing some of the tension, releasing
Yes.
some of the stress,
Yeah.
releasing some of the trauma, like how powerful that is. And we've been doing it way before all these studies came about. Thank God they, they came
Yeah.
to
Yes.
But the
Yes.
truth is, we've been doing that as a way for us to survive and move through the toughest times, right? We've used it in escaping, and we've used it in celebrating. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, the stories that have been told and or can be told, right? Because I think we're also just so creative. And I don't know about you, but the amount of times I've made up songs. Yeah, I love to sing, so I'm making songs about just about anything.
Yeah.
But it just use the words. If you don't have the words and you feel like you can't, sit in the sadness, or use the words, sing your song.
Yes.
It doesn't have to even rhyme. Just
Yes.
right, allow yourself to externalize that experience in ways that feel grounding for you. And song and dance has been that for us for so long.
Absolutely. I think
100%.
And I think that's a way to avoid suppressing the emotions that we've been feeling. We need to find those outlets for
Yeah.
ourselves to be able to release what we're carrying, you know?
Absolutely.
I want to add to that, Simone. I absolutely love that because there's that piece too around like finding the beat, right? Like we know, I know for myself, once I hear a beat, I can't stop
You,
moving.
you're good.
It's in our bones.
It's in the bones. It's all in there. But
Yes,
it's
totally.
recognizing, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
recognizing that, as you're singing the song, what's the beat that goes with it? Where's the heart of it coming from? And making sure that you can connect to it. Because I think a lot of times, as I've been studying more like somatic pieces and like the healing drum work of like, I think the Yoruba nations start to recognize that like, there are drum beats literally for everything, whether it's war or
Yes.
joy or celebration or healing, and find that beat. And I'm a firm believer that, once we start tapping the beat, whatever sounds right, that's what is needed at that time. So we can incorporate like the movement, the dance, the beat, and the storytelling just to create that community resiliency, but more importantly, that community power, and bring that
Yes.
power back, right? Because we have like this storm that was powerful
Yeah.
and out of control, out of anyone's control. But it's really, how do we allow ourselves and our families and our communities to reclaim that power and to
Yes.
reconnect with that power?
Yes. 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 I agree.
Okay, I always like to get myself in trouble. So I'm gonna get myself in trouble today because I love that you talked about the fact that the storm was powerful. And I know that, don't shoot me up, please. But there's messaging always when there's a hurricane that God is punishing us because, and I don't want our people to feel like God is punishing them. Like it's a natural disaster. Like, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Can I
all
just,
right,
okay.
shoot me up
I
now.
just, no,
Oh
this is not, no. I
Very
just want to
upsetting.
say one of
Very
the things that I don't think people are talking about enough
no. Yeah.
is how the, how climate change is impacting
Yes.
Uh-huh.
our nations, right?
Yes, the Caribbean region.
And
Yeah.
how the actions of the strong and mighty countries of the world, right, are impacting, like, actually the global majority, right,
Yes.
are impacting the less powerful nations, and they're the ones paying the price,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
When I was a little girl, there was a little limerick that they taught me when I was in grade school, right? Because we knew that we lived in a hurricane prolific region. We knew that was a factor, but they taught us when to expect hurricanes, right? And the limerick said, June too soon, July stand by, August a must, September remember, October all over. And so it meant that, prepare yourself in July, be ready for sure in August. In September, don't let your guard down, but you can relax in October, right? When this hurricane showed up in the Caribbean, those waters were about 32 degrees Celsius in October, right? This was never heard of when I was a child. And so as our powerful nations have become more and more advanced, have become more about consume and throw away, right? the nations that are less powerful are paying the price from an environmental standpoint. And so I don't believe that this is punishment from the heavens for
Exactly.
anything, right?
For those who are listening and you can't see us, we're all shaking our heads.
Mm, mm, mm,
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's important to note that, and I'm not on someone's side when I'm saying this, but again, grief is a very complex emotion, and
Mm,
and oftentimes we're looking for an answer. We're
Yeah.
looking for
Yeah.
someone to blame,
to blame.
To blame.
right? Because
Yep.
we feel unsettled when we don't have that, right? And that's just with kind of like life experience. It's like you feel very unsettled when you don't know which direction to go, what to say, what's real, what's not real. And unfortunately, sometimes people do use the thing that maybe has made them feel most grounded as a tool to then explain what's happening in their life, right?
Hmm.
And it's not necessarily right or wrong in terms of, people get to grieve how they want to grieve.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that I believe, because I've seen this at funeral, like we know that funerals and weddings are the times when people are the most dramatic. They say the worst things. There's always a fight. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
similarly, when people are experiencing disaster, they don't have the answer, they don't know what to do.
Mhm.
Sometimes they move to this place of blaming something that just they're trying to make sense of it
Make
all.
Trying to
sense
make
of it.
sense of it. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Mm,
saying that because I think that, especially when I think of the church, I think of spirituality, I think of those who really depend on the Lord in every and anything. And yes, maybe there's things there that feels true to them and can be true, but also, they're trying to just make sense of this whole thing, to soothe themselves
Yes.
oftentimes.
mm,
And so
Hmm.
even the way we respond to them, we've got to be mindful, right? Like I think it's important that we understand grief just shows up in so many different ways, and I think it's unfortunate that that's sometimes the place that we go when we don't know where to go. But that's also just the experience of grief. It really
Hmm.
is, unfortunately. Not trying to make excuses for nobody, but it truly
Yeah.
is
yeah.
just one of those things that we like. Look how many weddings break up because I'm trying not to go on here. But how many maid of honors got to the wedding?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Your best friend, and I'm just saying. I just want to
Uh,
take a few minutes
you can
to.
feel that tension. Does anyone have anything to say
Just
before these two shall not be married? And you're just like,
Yeah.
whoa.
It's trust me,
Yeah.
it's a nutty thing. And a lot of us
Yeah.
don't know again how to access emotions, how to sit with them, understand them, because we haven't been able to. Colonization ensured that we had no
Ugh.
access.
Yeah.
Being in survival has ensured we had no access, and so we just find a way. And unfortunately, sometimes it comes out in
Yeah.
these ways that doesn't help anybody necessarily. And so I just want to put that out there too, right?
Yeah.
That this is what grief
Absolutely.
does. This is why we
Yeah.
need each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Such a great point. Such a great point.
Mhm.
It's that piece around being able to hold space for intersectionality, right? It's
Mm,
like,
Oh,
yes,
yes.
being able to say that, yes, climate change absolutely has done this. And
And
I am looking for a space to be able to, like, I can't make sense
yes.
of this, especially
Mhm.
as, Caribbean folks. We're really good at problem solving. We've had to
just sad.
problem solve,
Good
right?
problem
We've
solvers.
had to.
Like,
We are problem solvers. We have had to problem
Yeah.
solve to be able to survive. So
Mhm.
now when it's like there's a problem and I'm trying to solve it, and I don't have an answer. So that's where it goes a lot of times, like God is punishing, or this happened, or I didn't pray enough, I didn't repent enough. So this is my call out, right? Like
Mhm.
people are grieving and trying to make sense of what's going on because the usual routes that work are not working right now.
Mhm.
They're not working right now. And so
And also too, I've seen, people use the realm of spirituality to explain things that they cannot explain.
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
I cannot tell you how many times I've heard, well, they probably don't do this anymore, but when I was a child, with people who didn't have access to modern medicine, when someone had a sudden heart attack, you hear that duppy Buxton, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
right? And you know, thankfully, we get older, we have more access to more information, and we change our
Yeah.
tune. But
Mhm.
so many times, people use spirituality to explain things that they don't have an answer for. And
Yeah.
to Simone's point, there's grief in that as well.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think especially with mental health, right?
Hmm.
Especially with mental health, where it's turned to, this person has this because of they did something wrong, therefore God's punishing them.
Right,
Especially,
right.
especially
Mhm.
across the Caribbean and in Jamaica. I remember doing my practicum at UE at the hospital, and it's just so interesting where things were situated. Right, we're like at the back where people had to walk around,
Hmm.
and if people are walking around, there's stigma
Yes,
attached to
shame.
and shame and belittlement where people are going to get
Mhm.
their care. But a lot of times people are saying, people go back there
Mhm.
because they didn't pray enough, or they weren't worshiping enough, and they
Mm.
weren't in the church, and all of those things. So because a lot of times things are not understood, and of course mental health falls within that realm, it does go back to spirituality as a way, as a placeholder to explain things.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that it's good or not good, but it's recognizing that there is
Mhm.
space to recognize that there's other things that could be at play here too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm. Phew, you guys blocked all my bullets. Thank you. Woo, that's sisterhood. That's sisterhood right there.
Always, always.
We're here for you.
We got you, girl. We got you.
I felt that. As I was sitting here, I was thinking about, talking, because I know that grief has come up quite a bit, right? And for those that are sitting in that uncomfortable place of waiting to hear
Mm.
back from family. I know even there's a lot of family members who live in Westmoreland that my family has not heard from. And then,
Mm.
of course, there's again this feeling of you feel pain, you feel anxious. How do people sit in this waiting as things are getting back up and running in terms of like, electricity and being able to connect with their family? How do we sit with this?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead. Did you want to?
Don't go. I was just gonna say, be honest that the waiting sucks. Let's just put it out there, right?
Mm.
The waiting is hard. The waiting sucks.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
not being able to connect with family or hear from family, or I know for myself, I was waiting for the Passover. They were showing the prime minister passing over different places, and I was like, why are they not showing Hanover? They're showing
Mhm.
everywhere else, but
Yeah.
they're not showing Hanover. What's going on? Why can't anyone get there, right? So that
Yeah.
Mhm.
the waiting sucks, but it's
Yes.
recognizing, like, doing something else. Where else can your energy go that could be more fruitful
Mm.
than the
Mhm.
Mhm.
waiting, than the sitting by the phone, right? Can you help
Mhm.
someone else who has heard from their family, and
Mhm.
something else than the
Mhm.
waiting? The waiting's
Mhm.
Mhm.
painful.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is where I was gonna say this is where you pick up the spirituality, right?
Yes.
Hey, hey.
Look at a full
There-
circle.
Yes,
Yes.
come on. Come on.
right? This is where you pick it up, because because like for many
Yes.
of us, again, it
Yes.
is the lens in which we see the
Yeah.
world in positive ways,
Mm.
negative ways, whatever it might be. It's such a grounding space for us. Again, historically, the church specifically has been such a safe haven for many.
Mhm.
And there's been challenges too, yes, but I'm talking about the positive parts of it. And I do
Mhm.
think that
Mhm.
look to your faith and the people that are within it, and how you might be
Mhm.
able to ground yourself there. Like, what are the things that typically do make you feel a little bit more settled? I think going back to this idea of noticing, I often talk to my clients about stillness time and intentional stillness time,
Mhm.
right? And just allowing yourself to sit with your thoughts. And write it down. Just notice, even like what's coming up for you, right? I love to do a body scan, and it's just really just
Yes.
allowing yourself to take your time and feeling the different sensations and different parts of your body and allowing that to be a way that you maybe calm yourself, you know. But I agree, like recognize that it does suck, recognize that it's scary,
Yeah.
recognize that it's creating anxiety, and finding ways to perhaps yes, distract yourself. Sometimes distraction is good. um,
Mhm.
Sometimes we can't process it all, and we don't know how to process it all, and that's fine.
Mm,
Sometimes the distraction is okay. And I think there's a lot of people that are going around trying to do their part. And, you know, there's different drives or donations and different things like that. And perhaps getting involved where it feels comfortable enough for you to do that is one of the ways that you can kind of support yourself. But it is a hard thing to answer, because the truth is,
yes.
um, you know, when you don't know what's happening with someone, how do you settle? How do you rest? And the truth is, it takes intentionality.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not easy, and I don't think that
Mhm.
that's at all what we're trying to say. Or um,
Yeah.
you know, we don't want to just give out tools and say, hey, just do this, recognize this. No, like, this is tough, this is
Mhm.
hard, this is, you know, for some unimaginable. It's just,
Yeah.
and then to not know what's happening,
Mhm.
um it's actually probably one of the worst feelings in all of this, right?
Mhm.
um and yeah, it might be a time to to look to your spiritual practice as an example,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
the other things that give you hope,
Mm,
um
Mhm.
more often than not.
Mhm. Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm. I love all of that. I think that's excellent advice. I think the only thing that I would have to add is, as you were waiting, to remember that um, there are parts of the island that have no electricity, that people have no access to charge their phones, that
Mhm.
people are, connecting for a meal. And so while you might not have heard from your loved one, it might not necessarily mean the worst,
Mhm.
right? It could mean that there's just nowhere to charge their phones. It could mean that they don't have electricity, or it could mean that they are out going to get resources, right? So definitely, do the grounding stuff, connect to your spiritual practice, get involved in the community, but
Mhm.
also while you wait, and we recognize that the waiting is excruciating, but while you wait, remember the circumstances, and not being able to get in touch with someone right away
Mm,
doesn't always necessarily mean the worst.
absolutely. Mm, wow. See, these all these gold nuggets, guys. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's so wonderful, and I know that it's so needed. I know that, you know, when I meet with my clients and I talk to them about anxiety, I say that it's the root of it is usually two things, right? It's either the fear of something or that feeling of being out of control. And, you
Mhm.
know, the situation has us both on both ends,
Both
right?
ends, yeah, yeah.
Right? And so, you know, trying to focus on the things we actually can control
Yes.
can be beneficial. And I see that. I see when I say that our people are resilient and have a bounce back, like I see all of the drives happening out there. I see
Mhm.
people
Yes.
trying to collect clothes and food for the community. Like they're trying to raise funds for the community, you know. And so you know, I want to commend our community out there that is
For
doing
sure.
that, you know, as they're holding on to both fear and that feeling of being out of control. Like they're also doing things in the midst of it to try to help in some way,
Mhm.
shape, or form, you know.
Mhm.
But don't feel like you have to, you know, operate like business as usual.
Exactly.
Mhm.
My hope is
Yes.
for those online who are leaders, managers, supervisors, is that they
Mm,
also create space for, well, first of all, please recognize that this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
100%.
Because I have some people who, there's been zero recognition at all. And I do wonder if it weren't in Jamaica and the Caribbean in general, because I know it's not just us, if that announcement would have been there. And that's quite disappointing, right? Because it then again devalues or invalidates our grief and experience,
Yes.
loss, and our personhood. And so number one, if you're a leader or of some organization, please acknowledge this and how much it's impacted folks. And then also, if possible, create some type of space or something that would allow people to also talk about it, and or just recognize that maybe the work can't look exactly the same because people are still waiting for a phone call.
Yeah.
Think again, when we talk about community, our workplace is also a part of that. Whether we want to believe it or not, people got to do their things outside of the workplace, but that's where they spend most of their time. And so, what are folks doing in those spaces to ensure people are well, at least seen, even if you can't do all the things, and see where you could also contribute to like ensure that folks get what they need back in
Yeah.
Jamaica and or across the Caribbean. It's really important. We need people to support us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Those are excellent points. And, especially here in Ontario, where a lot of people have left the work from home and now working in office, we see how hard it is even to just do the commute and being able to concentrate well on going in. So, that an additional call to leaders and managers to be able to have that leniency,
Yes.
have that understanding that, yes, these are the new policies in place, but it might actually be safer and actually more effective and productive for this person to stay at home this week, right? To be able to have access to that stay at home work opportunity, because it's
Absolutely.
hard and they're waiting by the phone and maybe being able to see different things online or connect with family members, right? So it is being able to have that leniency, but also letting people know that they're seen. It's hard enough out there on the everyday. I mean, yes, we're talking about Hurricane Melissa, but if we just look at the gamut of other things that have gone
Oh
on
my
the
gosh.
same week,
Yes.
right? Just all the different things, whether it's, in Sudan, I know there was elections in Tanzania where people were slaughtered. Like, there's
Yeah.
just so much
So
going
much
on in the
going
world
Absolutely.
that people are navigating, and people
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
still going through that grief. Like we talk about, and
Yeah.
I was talking about like during COVID that we haven't seen the mental health impact yet. Then we are seeing it now.
Now.
We are seeing it now. And then when we look at all the various traumas that are happening, there's compounded trauma. It's one thing after another after
After the
another.
Yeah.
next.
And,
Layers.
right, it's layered, it's complex, and it's
Yeah.
layered. And each
Yeah.
time there's something, we're re-traumatized and we're re-grieving. And it just activates all of it. So it's just being really lenient with people and making the space to check in and ask those questions. Like, how are you
Yes.
doing? I did that with my team just yesterday, where we spent some time like, how is everyone doing? There's so much going on. And, not even with the things going on in the world, but also in people's homes. We don't know what people are already coming with, right? Like, I know Simone, you mentioned that this month is a hard month. I know for myself as well, right? So if we're looking at like that and the things that people are carrying, we do have to have more humanity. And
Yes.
unfortunately, it has seemed like that humanity has gone, right? So what I'm really challenging everyone with is bring the humanity back in. We are all
Yes.
people working to navigate and to live well. Allow people that decency to live well.
Yes. 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 And I think, even if you're in leadership and you are feeling impacted, or you are feeling distracted, or you are feeling anxious, you just acknowledging that and
Yeah.
giving words to it can allow your team members who also feel the same way to actually breathe easier,
Yes.
right? For them to put their hand up and say, "Oh my goodness, me too."
Yeah.
Right? Really does make a difference, right? You can lead with empathy. You can set an example. Last week I was teaching a class, and I on the Wednesday morning I said, I feel a little bit distracted. And a couple of the students said, oh my goodness, me too, because of, you know, what's going on in the world, right? And so it just gives permission for people to step into that humanity. So that needs to happen as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Because that ends up being representation also, right?
Exactly.
That comes from the
That's it.
top. And being able to say,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm distracted or I'm not well right now. How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Just those simple words, it does create
Mm-hmm.
space for people to be seen, to be heard, to be validated.
Mhm. And that's what people want at the beginning and at the end of the day. They want to be seen.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As we begin to wind down, I know that there is a lot of different things that are going on that people are trying to do to help, and to provide support. For example, the space is a way that we've decided tonight to try to support community by offering space to validate experiences. And someone dropped in my inbox today mentioning that they're offering free therapy to those who've been impacted by Hurricane Melissa, or at least if their family has, if they're living in Ontario, Florida, Alberta, and Northwest Territories. You could reach out to them at info@ido-therapy.com. Um, are there things that you guys have been hearing about in terms of like support that people can access right now if they're struggling, or if you're offering anything also? Not to put you guys on the spot or anything, but I thought I would just open that up.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I have people on my end, and I'm
Yeah,
trying to see about partnering with others
yeah,
to collect stuff to send back home.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I know the Jamaican Canadian Association
Yes,
is a
They're
central
having an
kind of
event
hub.
this week, I think, as well.
Weekend.
That's
Yeah.
right.
yes,
They're having an event
yes,
this week as well. And I think it's really important to mention the what is it that they're waiving the
Barrel
tax on the
fees.
barrels and
Yes,
whatnot
yes, yes,
hmm
yes.
up until the
Reporting.
28th. And so
yes,
Yes,
I think I
yes,
the thing is I don't want people to move in urgency because I do think that's it's creating so much, but also we
hmm
know how much those barrels cost. So
costs. Yeah.
Yeah.
so so if folks could send things through
hmm
barrels, like now is
yes,
a good time.
yes,
Hmm.
And also I will just say once again, this is not just a 1 month, 1 week thing, right?
That's the
100%. It's a
This is
long
going to
haul.
take time. It's a long haul thing. And so, again, this is why the urgency may not be the best way to move about it per se, like to a degree, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But also recognizing that there's probably ways that we could organize to keep getting things out there to continue to support one another, throughout the next few months, years,
Yes.
whatever it takes.
Yes. Definitely.
So I
Definitely.
just want to mention that as well, that we keep this mindset not just for now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm. 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 I
absolutely.
That's
agree. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was just going to say that's very important, Simone, because we're hearing about all the things going in now, right? So
Mhm.
if you can imagine what the ports are looking like, there's lots of things there where people are still trying to organize. Like, if individuals don't have a home, where do they put the things?
Mhm.
Right?
Mm,
Where
Right.
do they put the things? Where do they put the food that's coming in, the clothing? Where do they put the things? So it's recognizing that while it's great to send them now, maybe
mhm,
in 3 months or in 6 months, while people are getting things up and running or starting to look at, like, okay, what are the necessities right now? And then what are the
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
staggered out? Because this is not just a November thing. This is
Yeah.
going to be a
Mm-hmm.
November and a December and a January and February, right? It's going to go on. It's
yes,
going to take years to
To
rebuild
rebuild.
some of the communities.
But I also think that outside of what, and while some of that support is necessary, right? People need food to eat, people need clothes to wear, but
mhm,
the Jamaican infrastructure needs to
Yeah.
be rebuilt. And so if people have the financial resources, there is the Jamaican website, I can't remember what it is right now off the top of my head, support.gov.jm,
support.gov.jm, I think.
something to that effect. And I think you can donate there. You can see exactly the progress that's happening. There are roads that have been completely washed away, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have to rebuild all of that. When I was a little girl after Hurricane Gilbert, I was out of school for months, right? Before children could go back to school. And so there is going to be this process of rebuilding that needs to happen. And so it's going to be more than a bag of rice and a bottle of oil, right? So if that, while there's need for that, there's also need for, if people can afford it, for financial resources that will go directly into, you know, boots on ground, rebuilding and infrastructure and telecommunications and all of that that's necessary as well.
Yeah.
I know that there's a huge conversation about trust right now, especially as people are sending resources and worrying that people won't get the resources. I already see some smiles on the faces. So, what do we say to our community about that piece?
Double check what.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Do your due diligence.
do your due diligence, because you're right. I see a lot of
Yeah.
things going, like GoFundMe's and this and that.
Yes.
And again, I'm not saying that people aren't doing their thing, right? But I think we do have to be diligent around where we're sending our money, making sure it's a reputable place.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's all we could really do, you know.
Mm,
That's all we could really do.
yeah.
And so check with, you know, I'm assuming that there's probably things on government sites that lets us know like where people are receiving things from, whether it's in Jamaica and or here. There's probably ways for us to find out where, like, who's kind of in partnership to kind of send these things. We know that there's some organizations that have been very much committed to both the Jamaican and Black community for a long time. I would say
Yeah.
start there as well. A lot of people are popping up now, and that's fine. And also sometimes, you know, it's for a time, and we need people that are committed and have been committed. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you hear it. Do your research, do your homework,
Check everything.
and everything, and be strategic also,
Yes.
right? Because
And don't be shy to,
yeah.
sorry, I was gonna, and don't be shy to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes, right? Sometimes individuals get to the place of like, well, they said they're doing this, so I should trust them. Ask the questions. Ask them the hard questions. Who do you have connections to there that's going to get it? And how are they going to distribute that to the people in need, right? Ask the questions.
Absolutely.
And listen, like life is hard and money doesn't grow on trees. And the last thing you want to do is take your hard earned money and throw it into something that you have no idea where it's going, right?
Yeah.
So just double check.
Yes. Double check, triple check, and then by
Check
faith
again.
after that, after you check again. Oh my goodness. Ladies, I must say tonight has been life-giving. I think I could speak for the Love Bay community as well. Just, how grateful we are that you guys would take time out of your schedule late at night to past our bedtimes, to
Yes.
to really pour into community.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is good.
And if you guys could leave one last thing with our Love Bay family tonight before we close off, what would that be?
Don't discount the strength of our people.
That's
Don't
good.
discount the strength of our people. Yeah.
I love that.
I think everything that we've been saying tonight, healing happens in community. It happens in community.
I guess I would just say, you know, grief is a process. It shows up in many ways, and it's okay for it to show up in many ways.
Yes.
And if we're going to show our resilience that we absolutely have, let's try to show it in ways that moves towards wellness and not
Yes.
just towards, survival. Um,
Mhm.
although we do need to survive now, but I do
Yes.
think we have such a beautiful way of healing and moving through this that can happen in community, and
Mhm.
it's possible. And again, we lick about with Talewa, so we are gonna get this. We're gonna get
Yes.
this story.
That's right.
All right. Well, there you have it, Love Bay family. We're little, but with Talawa, we're gonna make it through.
Absolutely.
What a powerful and necessary conversation tonight. To my incredible guests, Natasha Pennycook, Roxanne Francis, and Simone Donaldson, thank you
Thank
for
you.
showing up with such grace, wisdom, and heart. Your words reminded us that grief and hope can exist in the same place,
Absolutely.
Mhm.
that even in moments of uncertainty, we are held by community, by compassion, and by faith. So,
Yes.
yeah. And to our listeners, both here in the diaspora and tuning in from back home, please know that our hearts are with you. May tonight remind you that it's okay to feel what you're feeling, to cry, to rest, to pray, to hold your loved ones a little tighter. Healing doesn't mean rushing to be okay, it means allowing yourself to breathe, feel, and to believe that light still finds its way in. So, as you head into the days ahead, remember this: storms don't last forever, but they
Mhm.
do remind us where our roots are. And ours run deep
Good.
in love, in faith, and in the strength of our peoples. So, if tonight's conversation moved you, please share it with someone who needs a word of comfort or hope. You never know whose spirit it might uplift. I'm Felicia Fishoff, and this has been a special edition of the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. Weathering the storm, a grief, hope, and healing space for Jamaica and the Jamaican diaspora. Until next time, stay rooted, stay resilient, and keep holding